Hi, how's everybody doing? Welcome to the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Wait, it's a bird, it's a plane. It's, it's, it's your guy, the Young Brother of Soul. Well, the World Series is finally over. The LA Dodgers will win the series against the Toronto Blue Jays. The Dodgers will actually win back to back World Series. Believe it or not, when the Dodgers forced the game seven, I said to myself, I said, Dodgers are going to win this, but I fell asleep before the ninth inning. I fell asleep during the eighth inning. I missed it, which I'm highly upset. But I can't be because my hometown team definitely was not in the World Series, so we're just going to leave it at that. But the Dodgers won it again. Speaking of baseball, on today's episode of the Young Brother Soul podcast show, what I'm going to be talking about is MLB Baseball rivalries. Now, before I go on with the list, I just want to let y'all know some of these rivalries go way back since the 1800s, or should I say, the 1880s. And believe it or not, some of these teams had different names. So, yeah, just bear with me, y'all. Just bear with me. And some of these teams that played in the World Series wouldn't meet in the regular series until the 1990s when they did the International League meetings, just like how you have your NL and your AL meetings. They finally did the International, or IL for short, meetings in baseball. Yeah, finally did it in the 1990s. Now, baseball rivalries. Whew. Some of these rivalries go way back. Some of these rivalries may start young, but first on the list is the Boston Red Sox versus the New York Yankees. Now, believe it or not, these two actually first met in 1903, and they actually had different names. The Boston Americans and the New York Highlanders. Yeah, well, they're different names like the teams that we know today. The Red Sox actually won the first game. There are 2,327 total meetings between these two. And believe it or not, the Yankees lead the all time series 1,263 to 1,037 games. The Yankees also lead the postseason series 14 to 13 games. Now, before we go on, did you know that Babe Ruth, the great, or should I say the late great Babe Ruth, first played for the Boston Red Sox? And believe it or not, he won 3 World Series with the Boston Red Sox. That is until the year 1919. Red Sox owner sold, or should I say trade, Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. And believe it or not, the last time, well, as I should say, 1918, that would be the last time that the Red Sox won a World Series. And when they traded Babe Ruth to the Yankees, that was the beginning of the Yankees, not yearly, Yankees team dynasty. They would win 27 World Series. But these two actually first met in the playoffs in 1999, which the Yankees would defeat the Red Sox 4 games to 1. The Yankees would go on and win the World Series that year. They would meet again in the 2003 ALCS, which the Yankees defeated the Red Sox 4 games to 3. That is until the year 2004, where the rivalry really got intense when you had Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez versus David Ortiz, Pedro Martinez, Manny Ramirez. In 2004, these two would meet again in the ALCS. Believe it or not, the Yankees were up 3 games to none. If they would have won one more game, they would have swept the Red Sox and they would play in the World Series again. But the Red Sox were forced a game 7. And the Red Sox would win the game 7 in the ALCS to advance to the World Series. And that year, ladies and gentlemen, the Red Sox finally won the World Series since 1918, 86 years. That's another episode we might do. Teams curse. Yeah, the Red Sox will win the World Series. But that would not be the last time that these two would face against each other in the playoffs. They would face again in the 2018 ALDS, which the Red Sox won 3 games to 1. They would meet again in the 2021 Wild Card Series, which the Red Sox won. That is until 2025, which they met in the Wild Card Series again. But the Yankees this time would defeat the Red Sox 2 games to 1. Now, this rivalry is definitely going to keep going on and on and on and on and on. The only reason why I'm saying that is because it's Boston versus New York versus Boston. Yes. Another great rivalry, or should I say, baseball rivalry in the history books, is the Chicago Cubs versus the Chicago White Sox. Now, believe it or not, these two actually first met in 1903. The Cubs won the first game. But one thing I learned, if you're from north side of Chicago, you're a Cubs fan. If you're from south side of Chicago, you're a White Sox fan. So that is definitely why this is one of the most intense rivalries in baseball history. You got two teams in the city of Chicago, north side versus south side. There are 158 total meetings between these two. The all-time series is actually tied 79-79, but in the regular season, the Cubs lead it by 2 games. So you might as well say the Cubs lead the all-time series. But these two actually first met in the 1906 World Series. The Cubs were actually heavily favored to win, but the White Sox won the series 4 games to 2. Now, these two teams definitely have some history. You want to know why? Because in 1907 and 1908, the Cubs would go on and win World Series back to back. 1917, the White Sox would win the World Series. But in 1919, there were 8 players on the White Sox that they claimed fixed the World Series. They gambled to lose the World Series because they were heavily favored. 8 players. That is until the year 2005 when the Chicago White Sox finally won the World Series 88 years. Now, White Sox fans would definitely tease Cubs fans. Yeah, my team got a World Series before your team. My team, yeah. That is until 2016, 108 years after they won the World Series, the Cubs would finally win the World Series. It took them 108 years. I mean, these two teams, wow, those are heck of droughts. That's another episode that we're going to talk about curses in the MLB. But as of right now, the Cubs won the World Series. The White Sox won the World Series. So they're going to keep going at it and at it and on and on and on and on. North side versus south side. Another great rivalry in the MLB, or should I say baseball, the Ohio Cup. The Cincinnati Reds versus the Cleveland Guardians. Now, these two actually first met in 1887. The Guardians were in the National League in 1889. Well, things changed. They actually first met in the regular series in 1997. There are 141 total meetings between these two. The Guardians lead the all-time series 77 games to 64. Now, believe it or not, these two never faced each other in the World Series. In the state of Ohio, that would be a heck of a series. Cleveland versus Cincinnati, Cincinnati versus Cleveland. Will they ever face against each other in the World Series? Who knows? But as of right now, these two are in the battle for the state of Ohio. Yeah. And of course, the Guardians are now the only team in baseball history that has the longest championship drought since 1948. So we're just going to leave it at that. Yeah, baseball has some history with championship droughts. Now, speaking of World Series rivalry, these two always faced against each other in the World Series. They faced against each other 12 times in the World Series. And believe it or not, these two teams are the LA Dodgers versus the New York Yankees. Now, believe it or not, these two actually first met in the regular season in 2004. The Dodgers won that game. But the Yankees lead the all-time series 50-46. But the Yankees lead the all-time postseason series 38-33. These two always faced each other in the World Series. And believe it or not, they would face against each other for the first time in the World Series in 1941. The New York Yankees versus the Brooklyn Dodgers. Yes, the Dodgers used to play in Brooklyn, New York. Then they would meet again in 1947, 1953. Yankees won all those World Series games. That is until the year 1955 when the Dodgers finally defeated the Yankees in a World Series, 7 game series, 4 games to 3. Jackie Robinson and them. They finally beat the Yankees in a World Series. But that would not be the last time that they faced against each other in the World Series. They would meet again in 1956. The Yankees won that one too. Then they would meet again in 1977 and 1978. The Yankees won those two World Series 4 games to 2. That is until the year 1963. The Dodgers would sweep the Yankees in the World Series. Yeah, getting them back. And then in 1981, they would get them back in the World Series again. And then these two would face off against each other in the World Series in 2024, which the LA Dodgers defeated the Yankees 4 games to 1. Yes, so the Yankees have 8 World Series wins compared to the Dodgers 4 series. These two were always in the World Series. Now, will this be the last time that these two face against each other since 2024? Maybe not. But this rivalry definitely goes way back. And not only that, the Dodgers defeated the Yankees in 2024. So yeah, they might face against each other again. I don't know when, but they definitely will face against each other in the World Series. Another great rivalry in baseball is the St. Louis Cardinals versus the Chicago Cubs. Now, these two actually first met in 1885, where the Browns defeated the White Stockings. Yet they had different names, like I said. I don't know why, but those were the names back then. They're not the same names that we know by today. There are 2,543 total meetings between these two. The Cubs lead the all-time series 1,281 to 1,226. But in the postseason, the series is tied 8 games to 8 in one tie. Yeah, I can't believe they had ties in baseball. It's not football. I really don't like ties, but that's a different situation with football. But they don't tie in the playoffs because somebody has to move on, but they don't do it in the regular season. So it is what it is. These two actually first met in the 1885 World Series. It ended in a tie, 3-3 and 1. But they would meet again in the 1886 World Series, which the Browns Cardinals won 4-2. Then they would meet again in the 2015 National League Division Series, which the Cubs won 3 games to 1. Now, Another reason why this rivalry goes on is because you have your St. Louis Cardinal fans, 11 World Series, and your Chicago Cubs fans, 3 World Series. So 11-3, yeah, make the best team win. I mean, 11 World Series, 3 World Series, yeah, you're gonna brag about that. I mean, I would too, but yeah, yeah, great rivalry. Another great rivalry in baseball history is my hometown team, the Philadelphia Phillies, versus the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, these two actually first met in 1887, where the Quakers defeated the Alleghenies. Yeah, don't get me started. Don't get me started. There are 2,330 total meetings between these two. The Pirates lead the all time series 1,233 games to 1,088, and 9 ties. Yeah, ties. These two never played against each other in the playoffs, but they were in the same division at one point. The reason why? Because during that time, they didn't have as many teams as they do now. But while they were in the same division, these two were in the battle for the state of Pennsylvania. Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. But everybody knows that the city of Philadelphia is the biggest city in Pennsylvania, while Pittsburgh is number two. So there you go. But other than that, this rivalry is still going on, even though the Pittsburgh Pirates moved to another division in 1992 because the league started expanding. But that doesn't mean that they're going to stop facing against each other. They still face against each other, even though it's different divisions. But they are still in the battle for the state of Pennsylvania. So that's why this is one of the most intense rivalries in baseball history. Another great rivalry in baseball history is the Subway Series, which is the New York Yankees versus the New York Mets. Now, before I go on with this rivalry, New York actually had 3 baseball teams at one point. They had the New York Yankees, the New York Dodgers, or should I say the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the New York Giants. Yeah, they had a baseball and a football team with the same name. That's like the St. Louis Cardinals. You had the baseball and the football team with the same name, but the baseball team was already there first. So, yeah, I'm going to just leave it at that. Now, these two actually first met in the regular season in 1997. The Mets won. There are 157 total meetings between these two. Now, the postseason, the Yankees lead that one 4 games to 1. The reason is why is because, well, put it this way, the Yankees actually lead the all-time series 87-70 wins. But like I said, the Yankees lead the postseason 4 games to 1 because in the year 2000, the Mets and the Yankees faced off against each other in the World Series. Now, of course, the Yankees won the World Series in 2000, 4 games to 1, but that rivalry is a great rivalry because New York haven't had a subway rivalry since the Dodgers and the Giants. Now, the Dodgers and the Giants left to go to the West Coast. That is until the Mets debuted in the MLB in 1962. So that's why this rivalry is continuing with the subway rivalry. You have the Yankees from the Bronx, and then you have the Mets from Queens. I mean, New York is so huge, and y'all are so spoiled, New York fans. Yes, I already know my family's watching this from New York because they already know they spoiled. But yes, they only met in the 2000 World Series. That was actually the last time that these two faced off against in the World Series. Will they ever meet again in the World Series? Who knows? But the Subway Series is a wonderful series in baseball history. Speaking of this rivalry, as I mentioned these two just a couple seconds ago, this rivalry goes way, 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 way back. And this rivalry is the LA Dodgers versus the San Francisco Giants. Now, these two actually first met in 1889, where the Bridegrooms, what kind of name is that? Bridegrooms? The Dodgers defeated the Giants. But before they moved to San Francisco and LA, the Dodgers and the Giants used to play in New York, as I just mentioned. And not only that, there are 2,607 total meetings between these two. The Giants lead the all time series, 1,296 to 1,294 by 2 games. In the postseason, the Giants lead the season series 8-6. But these two only met in the playoffs twice. In the 1889 World Series, which the Giants won 6-3. But since the 49ers, or should I say, the Giants, 49ers, well, you already know you got 5 Super Bowls. The Giants moved to San Francisco and the Dodgers moved to LA, both in the year of 1958. They only met in the playoffs in the West Coast one time, and that was in 2021, which the Dodgers won 3 games to 2. Now, believe it or not, this rivalry is continuing going on since they go way back in the same state of New York, but now that they're in two different cities, San Francisco and LA. LA versus San Francisco. That's a heck of a rivalry in any sports. Yeah. Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson. Another great rivalry in baseball history is the Pittsburgh Pirates versus the Cincinnati Reds. Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh. Now, these two actually first met in 1882. The Alleghenies defeated the Red Stockings. Yeah, they had some weird names back then. There are 2,527 total meetings between these two. The Pirates lead the all time series 1,262 to 1,247. But in the postseason, the Reds lead the all time series 13 games to 8. Now, these two actually first met in the playoffs in 1970 in the NLCS, which the Reds defeated the Pirates 3 games to 0. They would meet again in 1972 in the NLCS, which the Reds defeated the Pirates 3 games to 2. And then they would meet again in the 1975 NLCS, which the Reds defeated the Pirates 3 games to 0. But the Reds will go on to win the World Series that year. That is until the year 1979 when the Pirates finally defeated the Cincinnati Reds in the NLCS 3 games to 0. Or should I say, or those were the scores if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Pirates would go on to win the World Series that year, 1975. 1975, that was the Reds. My mistake. 1979. They met so many times in the 70s. That's why the rivalry is so good. That is until 1990, where they would meet again in the NLCS, but the Reds would go on to win the World Series with that series 4 games to 2, and they would go on to win the World Series that year. They haven't met in the playoffs in a very long time. That is until 2013, which is the last time that these two faced off against each other. The Pirates won the National League Wild Card Series. But like I said, that was the last time that they faced against each other. Will they face off against each other again? Who knows, but this is definitely one of the most intense rivalries in baseball history. Another great rivalry in baseball history is the New York Yankees versus the San Francisco Giants. Wow, this is definitely a great rivalry. These two actually first met in the regular season in 2002. The Yankees won that game, but they have 67 total meetings. But in the postseason, the Yankees lead the all-time series 23 games to 19 in one tie. But the only reason why they only have 67 total meetings is because if it wasn't the Yankees and the Dodgers, it was always the Yankees and the Giants playing against each other in the World Series. Yeah, playing it against each other in the World Series. These two actually first met in the World Series in 1921 and 1922, which the Giants defeated the Yankees back to back. That is until the year 1923, where the New York Yankees finally defeated the Giants in the World Series, winning their first ever World Series out of 27. They will also meet again in the 1936 and 37 World Series, which they beat them back to back, and then they would meet again in the World Series in 1951 and 1962. Now, believe it or not, in 1962, that was the last time that these two ever faced off against each other in the World Series. Now, this definitely is a great rivalry because this rivalry goes way back since New York. That is until the San Francisco Giants, well, the Giants moved to San Francisco. Now, will these two ever meet in the World Series again? Who knows? But this definitely is a great rivalry in baseball history. Another great rivalry in baseball history is the San Diego Padres versus the LA Dodgers. Now, these two first met in 1969, which the Dodgers won. There are 976 total meetings between these two, and the Dodgers lead the postseason series of all time against the Padres 7-5. Now, the Dodgers also lead the all-time series 539 games to 436 and one tie. But these two actually first met in the 2020 playoffs, which the Dodgers won 3-2, or should I say 3-0. They will also meet in the 2022 NLDS, which the Padres beat the Dodgers 3-1. But they would meet again in the 2024 playoffs, which the Dodgers won 3-2. I believe that was the NLDS series. Now, San Diego Padre fans talk trash to the LA Dodgers fans. I mean, 9 World Series wins for the Dodgers compared to the Padres, 0 World Series wins. I mean, come on, y'all. But it is the state of battle for California, San Diego versus LA, LA versus San Diego. This is a great rivalry, but Dodgers are way better than the Padres. Yeah. Yeah. Another World Series for the Dodgers. Yeah. Yeah. Another great rivalry in the MLB, or should I say baseball history, is the New York Mets versus the Philadelphia Phillies. Philadelphia versus New York, New York versus Philadelphia. Now, these two first met in 1962, which the Phillies won that first game. There are 1,097 total meetings between these two. The Phillies actually lead the all-time series 562 to 535, but in the postseason record, the Mets lead that 3-1 because these two only met one time in the playoffs, which is the year 2024, which the Mets won the NLDS against my hometown Phillies 3-1. I really don't know what happened in that. The Mets were actually good that year, but this rivalry is a great rivalry. I mean, it's Philadelphia versus New York, New York versus Philadelphia. Now, would that be the only time that these two face off against each other in the playoffs? Who knows? But they are in the same division, so they are in a battle for the NL East. Yeah, that's another reason why this rivalry is great. I mean, they both have 2 World Series. The Mets have 2, 1969, 1986. The Phillies have 2, 1980, 2008. Yeah, so here we go. 2-2, 2-2, 2-2. Another great rivalry in baseball history is the freeway rivalry. That is the LA Angels and the LA Dodgers. Now, these two first met in 1997, which the Dodgers won. There are 154 total meetings between these two. And believe it or not, the Angels lead the all-time series 81-73. These two are definitely a good rivalry because they play in the same city, the city of Los Angeles. I mean, you have the Dodgers of LA, and then you have the Angels of LA, Anaheim. What's up with that, Anaheim? Somebody leave a comment, let me know what that means, Anaheim of LA. I mean, yeah. But, I mean, 9 World Series compared to 1 World Series. Yeah, this definitely is a great rivalry. Now, will these two ever meet in the World Series? Who knows? But that would be a great series to watch. But The Angels only have one compared to 9, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. I think we do. Another great rivalry in baseball: the St. Louis Cardinals versus the LA Dodgers. Now, these two first met in 1884, which the Dodgers won. There are 2,241 total meetings between these teams. The Cardinals lead the all time series 1,127 to 1,096 and 18 ties. Yeah, what's up with the ties in baseball? These two actually met in the playoffs quite a few times. They met in the 1985 NLCS, which the Cardinals won. They would meet in the 2004 NLDS. Cardinals win that one. Then they would meet in the 2009 NLDS. Dodgers won that one. Then they would meet again in the 2013 NLCS. Cardinals win that one. Then they would meet again in the 2014 NLDS. You already know the Cardinals win that one. That is until 2021 when the Dodgers defeated the Cardinals in the wild card series. Now, this is definitely a great rivalry because you have 11 World Series to 9. Looks like the Dodgers are trying to catch up to the Cardinals. Yeah, believe it or not, the Cardinals have the most World Series in the NL, the National League. And of course, we already know the Yankees have the most World Series, American League, 27. But yeah, I don't know. Looks like the Dodgers are trying to, like I said, trying to catch up to the Cardinals. Yeah, yeah. Now, before we end this video, I also want to mention that there are some honorable mentions rivalries in baseball history, which we have the LA Angels versus the Athletics, Atlanta Braves versus the New York Mets, the city rivalry, which was the Philadelphia Athletics versus the Philadelphia Phillies. A lot of people did forget that the Athletics used to play in Philadelphia before they relocated. They actually won 5 World Series. So it's like the Red Sox and the Athletics were like the first 2 teams dynasty in baseball World Series history. Yeah, the city of Philadelphia. Can you imagine if Philadelphia had 2 baseball teams to this day? That would be great. That would be great. Then you had the Lone Star Series, which is the Texas Rangers versus the Houston Astros. These two actually first met in 2001, but they would meet in the 2023 ALCS. That's because the Houston Astros moved to the American League. Yeah, they did. Yeah. Then you have the Nationals, Washington National versus the Philadelphia Phillies, which they first met in 2005. Then you have the Detroit Tigers versus the Chicago White Sox, which they first met in 1901, but they never played against each other in the playoffs, shockingly. Then you have the Minnesota Twins versus the White Sox, Chicago White Sox, which they first met in 1901, and they didn't meet in the playoffs neither. Wow, I'm really shocked. But you do have the Milwaukee Brewers versus the Chicago Cubs, which they only met one time in the World Series. Wow, some of these one times or no times meeting in the playoffs, I'm actually quite shocked. As long as baseball been out, I'm actually quite shocked. Now, before we move on with this video, I just want to say thank you for watching Baseball Rivalries. Make sure y'all subscribe, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that notification button. And everybody, enjoy the rest of your night and be safe. And thank you for watching another episode on the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And it is me, your guy, the Young Brother of Soul. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.